Welcome to the debate. Welcome back to our channel. 89 minutes of flawless defensive geometry, completely shattered in a single moment by Merino.
Flawless. Come on, that's a stretch.
Look, today we are unpacking Portugal's incredibly polarizing 1-0 loss to Spain in Dallas. The central question we have to answer was Portugal's defeat a case of a valid, gritty defensive strategy finally succumbing to pure exhaustion? Or was it the inevitable collapse of a system structurally compromised just to accommodate a 41-year-old captain?
I think our tactical eye test makes the answer pretty obvious.
Well, I look at that match and see a tactical fortress. For 85 minutes, led by the absolute granite presence of Ruben Dias, they frustrated Spain. They completely neutralized the Spanish possession machine by forcing them into lateral, low-threat passes.
Calling that a fortress is extremely generous. I look at our tactical eye test of that exact same setup and see a team stuck in 2016.
Stuck in 2016? They were absorbing pressure.
That defensive posture wasn't some brilliant masterstroke of containment, though. It was a forced necessity. They sat that deep because they completely lacked a coherent attacking transition, and that is entirely due to who was leading the line.
Wait, hold on. You can't ignore the reality of the opponent here. You have to look at Rodri. His robotic efficiency in cycling the ball forced Portugal's midfield to adapt.
Yeah, but seeing Bruno Fernandes dropping so deep, basically operating as a third center back, was a necessary tactical sacrifice to plug the passing lanes. It was a mathematical necessity to survive Spain's overload in the middle. Well, yes, but why was Spain able to overload them so easily? Because the captain couldn't trigger a high press.
You can't press a team like Spain for 90 minutes anyway.
You have to try something. When your striker is completely static out of possession, Spain's center backs have infinite time on the ball. That is exactly what forced Fernandes to drop so deep, and functionally, that widened the gap between Portugal's midfield and their forwards to 40 yards.
It was a big gap, sure, but
you could see Rafael León throwing his hands up in frustration on the wing, because the space between him and Fernandes was a literal chasm. Every time Portugal won the ball, there was no linking player to escape the pressure.
Look, I see the isolation, but isn't viewing Portugal's setup as a structural failure just like blaming a dam for breaking during a historic flood?
A flood?
Yes. They were facing a Spanish side that cycles the ball like a computer program. Dropping deep and absorbing that pressure was the only way to mathematically keep the game at 0-0 for as long as they did.
It is not just about the floodwaters. It is that they built a dam without a spillway. When you absorb that much pressure from a possession machine like Spain, you need a pressure release valve.
Which they tried to do on the counter.
But Portugal's forwards were too static to actually provide one, so the water just backed up until the structure burst. We saw Portugal waste the prime explosive pace of modern threats like Leo, Neto, and João Felix.
Because they had to defend.
They had the weapons on the pitch, but the system suffocated them. And look at the substitutions. Spain brings on Merino, which injects this crucial aggressive verticality into the half spaces. Portugal's changes, completely reactionary. They were exhausted from chasing shadows because their forward line offered zero defensive relief.
You're conflating exhaustion with structural failure, though. A block that holds for 89 minutes against Spain is fundamentally sound.
Exactly. That right there perfectly highlights the brutal complexities of tournament football. There is an incredibly delicate balance between honoring a legacy generation and evolving tactically. If you refuse to evolve your pressing structures, the modern game leaves you behind, no matter how good your center backs are.
The listeners will have to weigh this evidence for themselves. You have to balance the undeniable grit and effectiveness of that defensive block against the tactical setup that left elite attackers stranded.
Stranded underwater.
Right. When you build a defensive dam to hold back a flood, you have to be absolutely certain you haven't trapped your own best players underwater in the process.